there is a man whose face became so recognizable that millions of people who have never watched a single episode of his show could still pick him out of a crowd instantly. Not because of a hit song, not because of a blockbuster film, but because of a single frozen moment captured in a screenshot that spread across the internet like wildfire. That image, wild hair reaching toward the sky, hands mid-gesture, eyes wide with absolute certainty, became one of the defining visual jokes of the early internet age. But here is what most people who laughed at that meme never stopped to ask: who actually is this person? What did his life look like before the cameras found him? And perhaps most interestingly, what has become of him now that the joke has been running for well over a decade? The answers are genuinely surprising, and the full story is far more layered than a punchline ever lets on. Giorgio Tsoukalos was born on March 14, 1978, in Lucerne, Switzerland. His father was Greek and his mother was Austrian, which meant he grew up in a household where different languages and cultural traditions overlapped constantly. That kind of upbringing has a way of shaping how a person sees the world, particularly when it comes to questioning which version of history gets told and which version gets left out. From a young age, he was drawn to ancient civilizations, to the ruins and mysteries that formal education tends to mention briefly before moving on to something considered more practical. That curiosity never left him, even as he eventually crossed an ocean to pursue a formal education in the United States. He attended Ithaca College in New York, earning a bachelor's degree in communications in 1998. At the time, that choice of major probably seemed fairly straightforward for a young man who enjoyed expressing ideas and engaging with audiences. What nobody could have predicted was exactly how fitting that educational background would turn out to be, given what his career eventually became. Communications, at its core, is about how messages are constructed, how they reach people, and what makes certain ideas stick while others disappear. Few people have demonstrated those principles more vividly, whether intentionally or not, than Tsoukalos himself. After graduating, he did not walk into a television studio or start pitching documentary concepts. His first real professional chapter looked nothing like what came later. For the better part of a decade, from 1999 through 2007, he worked as a promoter for professional bodybuilding competitions sanctioned by the International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness. He was involved in events connected to Mr. Olympia, one of the most prestigious competitions in the sport, and he produced and directed the IFBB San Francisco Pro Grand Prix for several consecutive years between 2001 and 2005. This is not a footnote in his biography. This was his actual career, the thing he showed up to do week after week while the rest of the world had no idea who he was. There is something genuinely amusing about the contrast, though it also reveals something important. He was clearly capable of organizing large events, managing logistics under pressure, and presenting spectacles to paying audiences. Those skills translate more directly than one might expect into the world of television production. Running parallel to his bodybuilding career, almost invisibly at first, was a separate passion that would eventually overtake everything else. From 1999 to 2008, he served as the editor of a publication called Legendary Times, a magazine focused on ancient astronaut research and connected to the ideas of Swiss author Erich von Däniken. Von Däniken is the writer perhaps most responsible for popularizing the idea that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in ancient times and played a role in shaping early human civilizations. His 1968 book Chariots of the Gods became an international bestseller despite fierce criticism from the academic community, and it inspired generations of readers who felt that conventional history was leaving something important out of the picture. Tsoukalos became deeply connected to von Däniken's intellectual world, eventually taking on the role of director of the Archaeology, Astronautics and SETI Research Association, an organization built around exploring and promoting these theories. So for nearly a decade, he was living two professional lives simultaneously. On one side, muscle competitions and fitness promotions. On the other side, a quiet but serious engagement with ideas about ancient civilizations and the possibility that humanity's distant past contained influences that mainstream science had never properly acknowledged. Neither world paid enormous attention to the other. Then, in 2009, those two very different chapters of his life became irrelevant compared to what came next. Ancient Aliens premiered on the History Channel in 2009, and it arrived with a simple but provocative premise: what if extraterrestrial beings visited Earth thousands of years ago, and what if the evidence of those visits is still visible in the monuments, texts, and artifacts that ancient civilizations left behind? The show pointed to structures like the Egyptian pyramids, the Nazca Lines in Peru, the ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia, and dozens of other sites around the world, arguing that the sophistication of these achievements pointed toward help from beyond our planet. Critics lined up immediately to dispute nearly every claim the show made. But audiences lined up too, and they kept coming back. Tsoukalos emerged as the most consistently visible and energetic presence on the series. Season after season, he appeared on screen delivering theories with a particular style that was impossible to ignore. He did not speak tentatively. He did not hedge his claims with careful qualifications the way an academic presenting a paper might. He leaned into each idea with full theatrical commitment, as though he were revealing something the world had been waiting centuries to hear. That approach was polarizing by design, even if the polarization was not always planned. Viewers either found it compelling or found it absurd, and sometimes they found it both at once, which is arguably the most powerful reaction a television personality can provoke. By 2016, his relationship with the show deepened beyond simply appearing in front of a camera. He became a co-executive producer of Ancient Aliens, which meant he now had genuine creative influence over the direction of the series, the topics explored each season, the locations visited, and the way information was presented to audiences. The man who once organized bodybuilding shows was now helping shape one of the longest-running documentary-style programs in cable television history. That shift from on-screen personality to behind-the-scenes decision-maker is significant because it suggests the network viewed him as more than just a recognizable face. He had become part of the machinery that kept the whole operation running. Outside the main series, he explored additional projects that extended his reach across different platforms and networks. In 2014, he hosted a spin-off series called In Search of Aliens, which aired on the H2 network for a single season and covered topics ranging from the search for the lost city of Atlantis to various historical mysteries that the show framed through the lens of possible extraterrestrial involvement. Critical reception was not particularly warm. Some reviewers felt the spin-off lacked the focused energy of the original series, wandering between subjects without building toward a coherent central argument. Despite that reception, the experience did nothing to diminish his standing on the flagship show, which continued attracting audiences and generating new episodes regardless of how any spin-off performed. Then something happened that had nothing to do with television ratings or network strategies. Around late 2010, a single screenshot from an episode of Ancient Aliens began appearing on internet message boards. The image showed Tsoukalos mid-sentence, his hair standing impressively upright, his hands raised with dramatic emphasis, his expression radiating absolute certainty about whatever point he was making. Someone paired that image with a caption that played on the show's recurring suggestion that alien involvement explained various ancient mysteries. The format was simple: state any unexplained problem, then conclude that aliens were probably responsible. The joke spread almost immediately across early internet communities and then continued spreading for years, migrating from one platform to another, appearing in contexts that had absolutely nothing to do with archaeology or ancient history. Missing homework. Unexplained refrigerator noises. Traffic that made no logical sense. The punchline worked universally because the format was not really about aliens at all. It was about the very human tendency to reach for dramatic explanations when simpler ones feel unsatisfying. What made the cultural moment even more interesting was how Tsoukalos responded to it. Many public figures who find themselves turned into internet jokes react with defensiveness, irritation, or carefully worded statements from publicists. He did the opposite. He embraced the meme openly and enthusiastically, describing it publicly as an honor and expressing genuine appreciation for the widespread attention it brought. During a Reddit Ask Me Anything session in 2015, he was direct about loving the meme and finding the whole phenomenon more flattering than insulting. That response reframed everything. Instead of becoming a reluctant joke, he became someone in on the joke, which is a far more interesting and durable position to occupy in internet culture. That willingness to participate in his own mythology opened doors that straightforward television success rarely creates. He made a cameo appearance on the sci-fi comedy series Resident Alien in 2021, playing a version of himself at a convention panel built around ancient astronaut theory. The show's main character referenced him on screen in a way that directly acknowledged the meme that had followed him for years. He returned for another appearance the following year, which confirmed the crossover had genuinely resonated rather than feeling like a one-time novelty. Very few television personalities manage to transition from being laughed at to being celebrated for their ability to laugh along, but that is precisely the space he found a way to occupy. The scientific and academic community, meanwhile, has maintained steady criticism of the theories that made him famous. Archaeologists, anthropologists, historians, and scientists across multiple disciplines have consistently pushed back against the core claims made on Ancient Aliens, arguing that the show misrepresents how ancient civilizations actually functioned and what they were capable of achieving. Critics in these fields have pointed out that presenting monuments like the pyramids as evidence of alien intervention involves a troubling underlying assumption, namely that ancient peoples, particularly those from non-European cultures, lacked the intelligence, creativity, and organizational capacity to accomplish extraordinary things on their own. Scholars have described this pattern as a form of what some call temporal chauvinism, the assumption that people living thousands of years ago were fundamentally less capable than modern humans simply because their tools and methods looked different from ours. Organizations focused on civil rights and media accountability have also weighed in over the years, noting that ancient astronaut theory disproportionately applies alien explanations to the achievements of civilizations in Africa, South America, and Mesoamerica while rarely applying the same logic to structures built by ancient European cultures. That pattern carries historical implications that go beyond television entertainment, touching on deeper questions about which cultures get credited with genius and which get their achievements explained away. These are serious criticisms that deserve serious consideration, and they represent one of the most substantive ongoing debates surrounding the Ancient Aliens franchise. Tsoukalos himself holds no academic credentials in archaeology, anthropology, or any related field. His formal education is in communications, and he has never claimed otherwise. But critics have argued that the production environment of the show, with its polished visuals, dramatic music, and authoritative framing, creates an impression of scholarly weight that the content does not actually carry. The recurring phrase "ancient astronaut theorists say yes," which has appeared in countless episodes, presents speculation as though it reflects the conclusion of a recognized community of experts, when in conversations to convention panels attended by dedicated fans. He has appeared on programs like The Joe Rogan Experience and Coast to Coast AM, consistently reaching audiences who exist well beyond the traditional cable television viewership that first encountered him on the History Channel. That ability to move across media platforms matters enormously in the current landscape, where audiences fragment across streaming services, podcasts, social media, and traditional broadcast in ways that make any single channel less dominant than it once was. As of 2026, Ancient Aliens has reached its 22nd season, a milestone that few programs of any kind achieve, let alone shows built around theories that the scientific establishment has consistently rejected. New episodes have continued airing on the History Channel into early 2026, though the path has not been entirely smooth. There have been scheduling adjustments in moments when planned broadcast slots were shifted or replaced with other programming, suggesting that the relationship between the show and the network navigates ongoing negotiations about how and when to release content. Despite those complications, the franchise has continued producing new material rather than simply cycling through reruns, which indicates the network still considers it commercially worthwhile. His personal life has remained relatively removed from public attention compared to the theatrical persona he presents on screen. He married Crix Beeble on March 10, 2013. She is a glass artist and jewelry designer who founded her own creative studio called Crix Beeble Creations in 2006, working with materials including borosilicate glass, metal, and leather to produce distinctive handcrafted pieces. Some of her work reflects an aesthetic connected to cosmic and universal themes, though she has not positioned herself publicly as a proponent of ancient astronaut theory. The couple lives in Los Angeles, California, and their relationship has remained largely outside the tabloid coverage that follows many television personalities of comparable visibility. There have been no public reports of major personal controversies or changes in their circumstances. His estimated net worth, based on figures that have circulated across entertainment reference sources, sits at approximately $4 million, reflecting nearly 2 decades of accumulated earnings from television appearances, production roles, public speaking engagements, convention appearances, and other media ventures. That figure places him in a comfortable position within the world of niche television personalities, well established relative to most people working in fringe media spaces, though not remotely in the category of mainstream entertainment wealth. It reflects a career built on consistent presence and sustained relevance rather than a single explosive moment of mainstream success. What makes the full story of Giorgio Tsoukalos genuinely interesting is not really whether ancient astronaut theory is correct. The scientific consensus on that question is clear. What is interesting is how a person navigates building a career around ideas that most experts reject, becomes an accidental internet icon through a screenshot they had no control over, responds to that development with enough self-awareness to turn it into an asset rather than a liability, and then continues working steadily in the same direction for more than 15 years while the world around them changes almost completely. That combination of qualities does not describe a person who stumbled into fame and then disappeared. It describes someone who found an unlikely path and committed to it with the kind of persistence that produces genuinely durable results, whatever one thinks about the destination. The bodybuilding promoter from Switzerland who spent years editing a fringe magazine while organizing fitness competitions before landing on a cable television show that turned him into a meme is, in 2026, still working, still producing content, still defending ideas his critics find deeply flawed, and still carrying that distinctive hair and those dramatic hand gestures into every camera frame. Some stories have tidy endings. This one is still being written, season after season, screenshot after screenshot, one theatrical revelation at a time.